Greetings and salutations, dear viewers, and welcome back to the realm of Final Fantasy XIV, and have I got a present for you. You see, there was a period of about 3 months' time when I was working very hard on completing Tofu Tower that I didn't play much, if any, of Final Fantasy XIV, so I fell behind a little bit on some of the content. Specifically, there was an Extreme Mode Primal that came out last patch that I never got around to beating. That is, until now. This is Thordan Extreme, the Minstrel's Ballad, Thordan's Reign. Thordan, King Thordan, and his Knights 12 is effectively the Final Fantasy XIV version of Knights of the Round. This was the final boss of Heavensward, and you get to fight an extreme mode of this released during the previous patch. Since it was in the previous patch, we do have a couple benefits going into this, such as better gear than was available at the time, and there is an echo buff that actually, and I'm sure you'll see when it comes up on the screen, buffs a lot of our stats by a specific percentage. This is, even to this day, an exceptionally hard fight. It may not win the award for the single hardest fight in the game right now, but it certainly wins the award for most crap going on. I put together a party finder for a clear group, so this is largely a bunch of people that have not beaten this before, and we're all trying our best to get our very first win. And it took us a couple attempts. So at the start of the encounter, and different groups handle this different ways, but the way that I'm most comfortable with is having everybody in the party designated a cardinal direction, including the 4 corners. I personally have claimed southwest, though I did this in a previous match. The A marker, though I'm not entirely sure what is there for, does help in me knowing where to run, as I know I'm simply 45 degrees to the right of that A marker. This fight can be a little intimidating because many of the fights are divided up into multiple phases, and this one is commonly understood to have, I think, 13 phases. It's a little ludicrous. I can't wrap my head around that. Like, I just can't visualize that many phases. So I personally group this fight up into 3 phases. And then each one of those phases has a few patterns you have to go through along the way. For the most part, the first phases largely just don't stand and stuff. You have the red circles going down, then you have the directional AoEs here, which cover half the arena. As long as everybody is stacking near Thordan, though, you can simply run through him to the other side. Note, though, the splits between each one of those attacks, as though not terribly important here, that's going to be important later on. His frontal attack is a cleave, so nobody else stand in front of him, and he also has 2 moves, Dragon's Eye and Dragon's Gaze. Dragon's Eye, at this point in the fight, does nothing, so you don't have to worry about it. However, again, as the fight goes on, it will. Dragon's Gaze is very simple. If you're looking at Thordan, you're given the Fear debuff, which means you run wildly until it either wears off, hopefully, or you run into something and die, which is more common. A reminder, the exact moment that you want to be looking away from him is when the cast bar reaches full. Give it a little bit of leeway before and after, and you should be perfectly fine. a little more time to lay into him before he uses Lightning Storm. But Lightning Storm is very simple. Everybody with a marker over their head, which is everybody, is going to be hit by lightning. If you're standing near someone else and you hit someone else with your own lightning, it's simply going to hurt doubly over. This is followed then by Dragon's Rage, which is just a big AoE that everybody has to stack in, followed by Ancient Quega, which is simply raid-wide damage. Heavenly Heal, if memory serves, is a tank buster, though don't quote me on that, I'm not actually sure what it is. But after he casts Heavenly Heal and completes his first rotation, this is on a set timer, I believe, or as part of his rotation, he will go untargetable and wander off to the side of the arena. And thus begins the overarching Phase 2. So the safest spot during this entire phase is oftentimes in the very dead center of the arena. If you're generally not sure where to go, the center where everyone else is stacked is usually the best plan, especially right here at the beginning. Because you're not fighting just King Thordan, you're also fighting his Knights 12. And the first two show up to show us what they can do. So they start by casting a rather large AoE. These are targeted on the individual players, and as long as you're all stacked in the middle, all of the AoEs get stacked in the middle. You can then simply run out to the side and not have to worry about being hit by them. The other knight put you all in chains. You're tethered to another player. Distance will break these tethers, so you just have to run far enough away from the other player in order to break them. This is where, if you recall, we called out directions earlier, and even the symbol on the arena floor marks the 4 cardinal directions and the 4 sub-directions? What's the word for those? I don't know, but I'm southwest, so I'm just going to, as soon as those markers show up on the ground, take off running towards the southwest corner. Immediately after the middle AoE goes off, you'll see these pillars appear around the arena. If one shows up at your cardinal direction, stand in it. Wait until it goes away, and then make your way back towards the center of the arena. Now when you make your way back to the center of the arena, you'll see a single knight there waiting for you. DPS him down as fast as you can. This is a DPS check. However, don't use any very long recast timers against him. Save those for in just a moment. Feel free to use short recast timers, though. The idea is to do as much damage to him as possible, if possible, killing him before he completes casting Sacred Cross. Or the more HP he has left when Sacred Cross completes, the more damage you take. Now, as soon, the instant he finishes casting Sacred Cross, everybody splits up again and runs to the edge of the arena. Not to the cardinal directions, however. You're actually running to not south, not southwest, but between that still the west by southwest, or south by southwest. You're running to the far edge of the arena. Do not touch the far edge of the arena, as at this point in the battle, touching it will kill you. You can see there is a marker here between the two major markers that I'm going to stand on. Stand right there, and as long as everybody is on a similar marker, nobody should get hit by the knights who are about to dash across the arena. Getting hit by them not only hurts, but it will also likely just knock you into the far edge of the arena, killing you instantly. Once the arena is clear, run back towards the center of the arena, where 2 knights will show up. Now, these knights are a much larger DPS check than before, and will go on for a fair bit longer. For starters, I simply run to whichever knight is closest to me and start DPSing him down. Don't use any cooldowns or anything yet. The two tanks will each grab a knight and pull them to the opposite end of the arena. If they're too close to each other, they gain a stacking buff. Very shortly after you start beating on them, they will cast Divine Right. Divine Right gives one of them an invulnerability buff that makes them take little to no damage from any attack. The other one gains a vulnerability up, letting you deal even more damage to them. I think there's also something else involved with this that the tanks need to worry about, but off the top of my head, I don't recall. Regardless, the one that I was targeting got the invulnerability buff. You can see a little shield on his debuff, so I'm not going to attack him. I'm going to rush to the other side of the arena to attack the other one, who you can see has the blue 3 spiked buff. 3 more knights will show up in the middle of the arena, ready to hit you with yet another move. At this point, it's a good idea to rotate the camera around so you can see what's going on in the arena. After they jump up in the air, you're watching for a blue marker, as you can see has shown up over Blaze Percival's head. Once one person gets this blue marker, they need to run away from everybody. So they either need to run to the A marker, which is not near any of us, or on the other side of the arena, Thordan himself has left his sword in the arena. Run to one of these 2 locations. It doesn't really matter which. Very shortly thereafter, as you can see hidden by the mass of names in the middle, someone else has gained a marker over their head. Now, it's important to have some awareness of what's going on, because you obviously don't want to run where the last guy ran, or you're just going to hit each other with your own buffs. So the second guy runs the other way, in this case running up to Thordan's sword. And then to top it off, in just a brief moment, a third person gets tagged with the blue marker. They run in the direction the first person ran. This should mean nobody gets hit by that move. Almost as soon as that third marker gets put on, the 2 knights will use Divine Right yet again, swapping their buffs and debuffs. So, the one who had the vulnerability up debuff is now going to gain invulnerability. I'm going to wail on him for just half a second and hope he dies, and then I'm going to fly across the arena and take on the other. Once one knight dies, the buffs and debuffs are both gone from the remaining knight. And at this point, it's simply your job to wail him down as fast as possible. The 3 knights will not show up in the center of the arena again, so at this point, if you didn't have the 20% echo buff and couldn't knock out one knight insanely fast, you're probably going to be going back and forth between the 2 knights another 2 or 3 times. Now, healers and tanks, be warned that these guys do have some pretty hard-hitting moves of their own. Holy Blade Dance specifically is a very hard tank buster. With both knights down, run back to the center of the arena, because we are not done yet. Everybody needs to stack, and wait until you see a marker appear around everybody. Now, once again, we're running back to our cardinal directions. There was kind of a lot going on here. For one, there were tethers around people, there's also the ice markers over people, there's the large AoEs in the middle of which are expanding. I don't exactly understand the tethers in this phase. I think the tether is tethering the players to a specific knight, and the knight is going to hit the players with a move. However, as long as we're all spread out, the move shouldn't hit everybody, or more than just the one person. The AoEs in the center are a little bit different from the previous, as these simply grow over time. I think they do damage as long as you're standing in them. And then, of course, the ice markers over everybody's head, which is going to put down a pool of ice as soon as it hits. So run out to your cardinal direction, wait until the ice effect goes off. When the ice effect goes off, the AoE in the center of the room will go away. It's timed pretty alright in that case, and now you need to run back towards the center of the arena. There's another knight now waiting for us in the center of the arena. Don't stack in the very center. Stand just a little ways out with your back to a place that does not have a puddle of ice, because the knight in the middle is about to do a knockback that's going to shove you back. And if you're standing very far away from him at all, he's going to knock you right into the instant death perimeter. If you're standing in the exact middle, you lose track of which direction you're going to get knocked in, and you do not want to get knocked into the ice puddles, or you're going to get a slow debuff that's going to stay on you for a fair amount of time. Remember your cardinal directions? Well, oftentimes the puddles of ice don't all appear immediately next to each other like they did here, and your idea is to get yourself knocked back in at least the vicinity of the cardinal direction you called, because someone, another knight specifically, is casting Meteor. There are 8 comet circles circling the outside perimeter of the room, and a meteor circle in the very middle. If you manage to get yourself knocked back in the, at least in the vicinity of of your cardinal direction, your goal is going to be to attack the comet circle nearest your cardinal direction. Because there were 3 puddles of ice surrounding mine, I'm running it just a little ways in order to get to my quote-unquote comet circle. But there's going to be a lot going on in this one phase. Now, the marker that's over my head now, after a brief time, is going to put an AoE circle around me. I don't entirely understand what this does, but I'm just going to take a wild guess that I shouldn't be standing in it. So I run off to the side, or I'm about to put down another of those AoE circles. So you're going to have to stay on the move. Another knight, throughout the course of this, is laying down another large AoE, and it comes out in ringed stages. So there's an AoE marker closer to the middle, then another one a little bit further out, and another one a little bit further out. You can weave between these. Now, I killed my own comet circle, however, all 8 of these need to die. You can get away with killing 7, killing only 6 of them will get sketchy very fast, but can also be done. Anything less than 6, and I wouldn't chalk it up for survival. But because we need to kill so many of these, and we have tanks and healers that aren't going to be doing as much damage as a DPS, I look around for any comet circles that are remaining near me and go DPS that one down. Thankfully, all of that chaos goes away about the time you kill most of the comet circles around the outside of the arena. Once they're all gone now, we can focus on the meteor circle in the middle. From here, just DPS the crap out of this meteor circle. Oh, by the way, if I hadn't mentioned already, you'll see there's a limit break gauge on the right-hand side of the UI. That is Thordan's limit break gauge. That is how much he's charged his own limit break up, and the longer you take in this entire second phase, the higher that gauge, that limit break gauge, will go, meaning the attack coming at the end of all of this will do even more damage. Now, with that meteor circle done, you can handle this next bit in a number of ways. This group seems to like stacking up near Thordan. As each knight shows up in the arena, you're going to be knocked back. This isn't that big a threat, but don't get knocked back too far. Personally, I kind of like just standing there in the middle and running back up to the middle after each time I get hit, but that's me. And then they actually use their limit break. I believe this is called Ultima. And if you have somewhere above 65 to 70 of the limit break gauge charged up, this will more than likely just flat out kill you. I use Mantra here so everybody can heal up. And for those of you who've been through the story mode of this fight, this is effectively where Thordan ends. The extreme mode, on the other hand, This is where the fight begins. Everybody run up and get ready to fight Thordan. First thing he's going to do is cast Dragon's Eye. If you see off to the right-hand side of the arena, there is now a large Dragon's Eye right over there. When he eventually casts Dragon's Gaze, you may recall that combo from earlier on in the fight, you have to remember to look away from both Thordan and the Eye. Looking at either one will hit you with fear and likely run you into the wall. This can get a little bit tricky for the tank, who is usually standing with his back to the Eye facing Thordan, but the tank, if need be, can look sideways with Thordan on one side and the Eye on the other, and he won't be hit by it. Now Thordan comes out swinging using all the attacks that he used in the first phase, and here he starts casting Knights of the Round. Each time he casts this, a different knight or a couple different knights show up to make your day miserable. This very first phase isn't too horrible, as you'll see a marker appear over one person's head. There it is now over Neliela's head. This person needs to stand with everybody between him and the center of the arena, because the knight, who you likely can't see, is in the center of the arena. What the knight is going to do is charge out towards the person with the marker. If he hits the person with the marker first, the person is likely going to just die. However, if everybody is standing in the way, the damage is kind of dissipated among the people before he gets to the target. There's also a short bit where a knight does one thing right here at the start that I don't entirely understand what is. Perhaps that was simply marking that target for being hit with his next attack, the charge itself. There it goes, everybody gets hit. Thordan uses Heavenly Heal, immediately followed by Dragon's Gaze, so this is the point where everybody looks away. And immediately following Dragon's Gaze, we lost a tank. Thankfully we have two. Ancient Quagga comes next, once again just for a little raid-wide AoE damage, followed by Dragon's Eye again. Now, casting Dragon's Eye moves the Eye to a different location somewhere in the arena. The tank has got to figure out where that Eye is and drag Thordan over to it. You can see the Eye there in the northeast corner of the map. However, Thordan is also casting Knights of the Round again, which means we've got some more mechanics to deal with. The easiest thing I've found is as soon as the knights actually show up in the center of the arena, and this is how I handle it, this is likely not how everyone should handle it, I run to the opposite side of the arena. Because you're going to have a string of pillars show up. There's going to be, I think, 4, and they're going to be lined up in a straight line. However, they're not necessarily going to be lined up going away from Thordan, as I was lucky enough to be. So this not only puts me in a prime location to get to the furthest pillar and make sure the hardest one to get to has a person in it, but you'll also notice Thordan is using Dragon's Gaze and you want to be looking away from him, and if I'm running away from him, I likely won't be looking towards him. Oh, and just to top it off, one of the other knights has shown up and decided to use that one circular AoE again. So dance around that one while you're doing everything else. Oh, and this red one shows up, so make sure you don't get hit by that one. And then as soon as that clears, run back towards the center of the arena because he's using Dragon's Rage and everybody needs to stack on that person and just kind of pray that that works out because there's a knockback in the middle of it, and then you can get back to beating on Thordan for a moment. You have a very brief moment to wail on King Thordan again. But with that Dragon's Eye out, the tank is going to be moving Thordan once again over to where that is. But everybody's going to have a lightning marker over him, so make sure to stand away from everybody else. Then everybody has to stack for Dragon's Rage. You've also, at this point, got somebody with a blue marker over their head and another person with a tether. The person with the blue marker over their head obviously needs to stand away from everybody else because it's the same blue marker that hit while we were DPSing down the two knights simultaneously early on. The person with the tether is about to be tackled by a knight, so he as well needs to stand away from everybody else, so when the knight tackles him, he doesn't hit everybody else. Everybody who doesn't have a tether or the blue marker over their head needs to stack on the tank to eat Dragon's Rage, and then you can go back to beating on Thordan again. Now, despite that he cast a Dragon's Eye in that last phase, he's not actually going to be casting Dragon's Gaze this round, so you don't have to worry about facing the right direction at any given point. Simply handle the rest of the mechanics. Dragon's Eye once again, which means the tank is going to be moving him again. Now, Thordan is really low on HP, and we're dealing with one of the final phases. This one is the try not to die phase. So you see the little red marker over your head, you also see tethers, so you have to separate everybody. You also see the red markers from before, so you have to not stand on those. Also weave between those. Also remember to look the wrong way for Dragon's Gaze, so you don't get hit by that one. A lot of crap to dodge, and followed by Ancient Quagga. At this point, you've been through the worst mechanically that you have to do. The DPS need to simply kill him at this point. However, his final phase at this point is simply a lot of raid damage. We kill him before that becomes too much of an issue, but the healers are going to be very unhappy. And that was Thordan Extreme. Your reward for beating him is a fancy weapon that I don't give a crap about, because we've outgeared it. I-205. Until next time, everyone.